Welcome to the Unlock 360 podcast, where education leaders share how they're turning vision into action, one system, one school, and one student at a time, because strong systems give every learner a better shot at success. Welcome back, everyone, to Unlock 360. I am your host, Wendy York Davoud, and joining us today, we have Mrs. Harley Webb. She is the principal of Bridge Creek High School in Bridge Creek Public Schools, located in Blanchard, Oklahoma. Welcome, Harley.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And it's beautiful outside. Very rare that happens.
Yeah, okay. And we actually have really beautiful weather here too today in Fort Worth as well. Great to have you on the show. Will you share with our audience a bit about your educational journey that led you to becoming the principal of a high school?
Yeah, so I actually grew up in the state of Texas, so not very far from here, in a smaller community, right on a lake, and so it was really a farm town, or you either worked on your farm or you went to college, kind of the two options you had. And so I got a softball scholarship and played softball in college and met my husband. Um, and while I was doing that, I got my first teaching job at actually my husband's high school and was coaching softball there and teaching. And while there, I had a fantastic first principal who was near retirement and had told me, like, I really think you have a key for leadership. And this is my very first year, and I'm like, there's no way. Like, you have no idea what you're talking about. Um, and so after a couple of years there, I had seen, like any educator, you see things that are great and see things that are negative, and like what drives you to want to do more for your kids. And so um, from there, I had an incident where a teacher no longer. We had this athlete that was a fantastic athlete, came from a rough home, who really was the reason why I wanted to become a principal, because I was like, I went to her, realized this kid can't read because I was a history teacher. In class, he was engaged, um, and I realized that he really can't read really well. And so I went to the teacher, and the teacher had told me, like, well, it's not my job to teach him to read. And that broke my heart. And I'm like, it is
Yeah.
your job. It's all of our jobs. So, but that was a point that I was like, really do want to be a principal. Like, I want to have a bigger impact on kids. And so from that point, I started that journey, and I had some really great mentors along the way, really strong female leaders along the way, as well as that were in the principal position, that just helped guide me and lead me there. And so my husband got deployed, and so I went back to, like, I'm just going to focus on teaching, taking care of our family. And then after he came back from his deployment, I really wanted to focus back on myself. It was my turn, to take on that role. And like anyone else, you pray on it, you're trying to figure out where do you want me, where am I going to be at, what is the great place for me. Um, and funny story is, my principal at the time that I went to work for as an assistant, he had already offered the job to somebody else, and he had said, I'm going to interview you, but I've already given the job to somebody. Are you interested? And I was like, well, what can it hurt? You know, I could just get some more advice and what I need to work on my interview skills. So fine. Um, and so I interviewed with him, and something, I'm telling you, it just, God works in mysterious ways. And the lady's husband took a job somewhere else. And so he called me and offered me my job as his assistant, um, which was truly a blessing. I mean, I've learned so much underneath him. And really, there's a lot of mentoring and guidance given to really help me move into the position of the head principal's job when it opened, because he took a different position within our district as well. Um, and so it's been a really great journey with leadership, and still having him here for that mentor part of it as well.
Yeah. Okay. So what is his role now?
So he is the director of operations in our district.
Okay. All right. And so was it when he took that position that you stepped into the principalship?
Yes, yes. We did a full interview with other candidates, and they searched. And I had told them ahead of time, like, if I'm not the right person for this job, I'm okay with that too. Um, but it just so happened that it worked out that way, and it's been a blessing ever since. I mean, it's a smaller community, and we have a really great group of students here. We have about 560 kids in the high school, 9 through
Okay.
12. Um, so it's smaller, but we average about 120 to 140 kids per class right now.
All right. Yeah, awesome. Okay, and so here you are, Principal Webb,
Oh,
and
yeah.
tell us some of the pieces of your position that you love. Like, what are some things that like jazz you up about each day at school?
So I love seeing our kids every morning, right? And so like we have in our building, and I'm sure a lot of other schools have this too. Like you will have it, one of our students who comes from a well-to-do family. Then you're going to have kids that have um, that parents struggle to keep their lights on at night. And so the best part of our job is really getting to see and teach our students how to welcome and love each other, regardless of where they come from.
I
And
love
so
that.
every morning, we really have that culture here where our students don't care where you come from, they don't care what you drive. Like we don't, those material things, they really just don't focus on. They really, truly focus on the character of each other, which is rare. I feel like to find that in this day and age, but our students really do love that, and just getting to see them interact with one another every morning when they get here is really, really great. And that's just, to me, that's a game changer for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right. Not a lot of high schoolers behave in that way in these days, so that's awesome.
It's a really great culture and community for them. Like I've never seen anything like it, like where they really just truly accept anybody. Like, come on in, come join us, let's go. And they treat you like you've been there your whole life. And so I can't brag enough about how great that part of this community is. It's really wonderful.
That is really wonderful. And what are some of the challenges that you face? Not that they might not jazz you up about coming to school, but nevertheless, what are some of the challenges?
So one of our challenges, especially like in Oklahoma right now, is trying to change that public narrative for us.
Yeah.
Oklahoma right now is we are on the struggle bus um, with just that PR part of it, right? The public relations part of it, and knowing that our teachers work really, really hard, and that we have some very competent teachers that are highly qualified for their position, and they work really hard for our kids, and they love kids, and they're in it for the right reasons. The biggest challenge really is making sure that that narrative or that vision that our district has, and making sure that that is able to be um, really given to our community in a way that they understand it, and that they feel confident that our staff is doing what they need to do. But like I said, the biggest challenge right now, especially in Oklahoma, is that the new ranks came out. We're 50th again. We've worked really hard to really build our staff and our communities up, but we're still nationwide. We're still struggling, and so that buy-in is really difficult for the community and others um, to change that for.
I can only imagine. Work quite often lately in the state of Texas and also in the state of California, and public education in both of those states also has really had a difficult time. And not necessarily, ranking in 50th, but, so I can only imagine that would be tough, yeah.
Yeah. And we have this, there's a lot of things that we're fighting right now, but really just the importance of how beneficial and the quality of education that public education can provide for students.
Yeah, you mentioned your district's vision. What is like, the district as a whole, what is the vision for the future?
So our vision, right? Like, so I feel like every time you go to like any type of PD or whatever, like, what is your vision and mission, right? And like I have no idea. Let me look it up because I don't remember what it is.
Yeah.
Um, so our superintendent has created an acronym, and we just call it GRIT. And it just stands like that we're going to provide growth opportunities for our students. We're going to build resilience. That we are going to inspire our students to want and achieve greater things, and that we're going to build tenacity in all of our students. And so that's our district vision. I mean, there's a lot. It's a lot more wordy, obviously, but that's like the thing that we really push is that grit part of it, and we try to implement it in everything that we do. Um, and then each building or each site has their own vision, and so we've kind of just modeled it after. what our superintendent has. So we're Bridge Creek High School, so we're BCHS, and so we just modeled it after the same thing. So we believe in all students. We create learning opportunities. We harness determination, and then we strive for success. Yep. So try to make it where we actually can recall those things and we can actually reflect on those and making sure that that is what drives us every day.
That's so important, because essentially what your superintendent and what you all are doing is, creating clarity with
Yeah.
something that you can come back to and, recall and really integrate into what it is that you do. Will you share an example of what that looks like in action at Bridge Creek?
Yeah. So what we do is we actually our school board is really great that they invest in our district. They invest in our teachers. So we send a handful of our teachers to the model school conference every year. And by doing that, that allows us time to the administrators to spend with our teachers and our staff, and that we get to spend more one-on-one time with them, learning them as a person, because we want to make sure that relationships are huge for our students as well as our teachers. So from the top down, like that relationships, we hit that all the way down for everyone. And so the growth opportunities, we're going to provide those growth opportunities for our staff. So we're taking them to model schools. And in those model schools, they get to choose whatever breakout sessions they want to go to, but then they have to bring it back to their site meeting. Because at the end of the day, each site meets, and then as a district, we meet as well. And there's usually about 20 of us that go, and we're able to really provide those growth opportunities for them and build that community for them to learn, right? So we want that community to be built all the way through. And it's not just pre-K through 12, or sorry, pre-K through second grade, each site. We do it pre-K through 12, um, because there's huge learning gaps that we have witnessed from post-pandemic. And so if we're able to, our students are faced with a huge challenge of those learning gaps and the engagement and teaching our kids like how to have discourse within the classroom and with one another in an appropriate way. And so by taking our staff to that conference, by making sure that when we go, we bring it back to us, bring it back home, and we share it with our other staff members, that we are able to consistently communicate that from July to the following July, with our staff, and provide individualized PD based on what we bring back. So each person kind of brings back their little niche when they were there, right? And then they provide that small groups to it.
Okay. There was something that you mentioned in terms of, the state as a whole, and then, earlier, and then you just mentioned that there's some learning gaps that you all are seeing in your students post pandemic. Will you share some of what you're seeing?
Yeah, so, it just depends. I think it depends on, honestly, like, what subject area you're focusing in, right? And so our each subject area has seen areas where our students, they just were not in school. For instance, there was our math PLC was speaking the other day, and we were talking about areas, that our students are really struggling in. And so we had to sit back down, and identify, okay, what grade level were they supposed to learn this skill? And I maybe it was fractions or something. And we identified that, okay, well, that year is the year that those students were not here. So we have to be able to consistently adjust our um, curriculum maps. Because if we don't, if we just stick to the same thing over and over again, we're going to continue to build those gaps, and they're going to have that missing piece. I think it was commas, like the mechanics of using commas.
Okay.
That that group had missed that grade level that they were supposed to have mastered it. And so each grade level, we're seeing those things, huge reading gaps, huge reading gaps. There's just not, we're at the point now at the high school, like when they reach, a, they're 17 years old, 11th grade, they're not able to read. We have to provide a different technique to them. We have to provide a skill for them to be able to, we can't teach them like we do pre-Kers or kindergartners, right? We have to provide them with skills that if you cannot read at the level that we think that you should be able to, we got to provide you skills to help you around that. And so we have some really great ELA teachers, um, and even our history team has come together to, like, okay, your reading comprehension is low. Okay, so let's figure out how are we going to fix that. And so we teach them to annotate. We teach them to make notes and how to reread, like all those certain skills, really to utilize those. Um, and I think almost it's a forgotten skill too, in that they're really just pushing those for us because um, I mean we have our success rate is really incredible. Like our average ACT score right now is a 19. Um, but we graduated 143 students last year. And we had 27 that made over a 26 on their ACT.
Wow.
We have some very high achievers that are working really hard. And so I think that if you can, like we said earlier, like taking that vision and looking at those instructional plans that you have and making sure that that culture is driving the instructional plan and that mapping that you're doing, you're gonna start to see success and close those gaps, but it takes a lot of time. A lot of time and a lot of investment. It's a culture that has really worked, but it's taken time, to just empower our teachers to be like, "Okay, we're gonna have to think outside this box." It's not the common theme that we've always had. Um and so those new challenges for that post-pandemic, those learning gaps, with whether it's reading or those math skills, those 2 things is what everyone focuses on, but we don't take a look at and see, okay, well, if they're just struggling in reading, they're gonna struggle also in history, right? They struggle in math and they're gonna struggle in science. And so ninth graders in Oklahoma, they take physical science. Physical science is a lot of math, lots of math. And so I was talking to our ninth grade physical science teacher, and she's like, these kids are really, really smart and they're very talented and they want to learn. She's like, but we get stuck on the math every single time. It doesn't matter what we do. Just if I can get them to learn all the concepts and it's just that math portion that's stopping them, she's like, then I had to provide opportunities for her and our math teachers to get together to try to find, okay, where are we missing the point at here? So like I said, it's a whole group effort all the way from ELA to history and the science and math teams working together um, to really make a difference for these kiddos.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. How, because of the size of your school and the approximate number of kids you said you had at each grade level, I'm thinking you may only have one or two teachers for a particular content area at each grade level.
They're singletons, so I only have one teacher per subject area.
Okay, so then how do you build in opportunities for them to learn from one another?
So we have what we call it like win time, right? Your traditional win time. Um, so I have created a schedule, um, which took lots of time and just trying to figure it all the things out. And it's a trial and error, right? Like we tried it this way, it didn't work. So let's go back to the drawing board and having to have teachers be like, okay, I'm with you on this. Like I'm right here with you. I'm not going to leave you high and dry. Like we're going to work through it together and redesigning that win time. We've redone it 3 times this year to figure out like where it's at. I just sent a survey out to the staff last week and asked them, okay, is this working? And they're like, yes. And so what we did was we paired up teachers, so a math teacher with a science teacher, if we can. They share ones that share students. So 2 days a week they go into one class. 2 days a week they go to another class, and then that opens up when one group doesn't have students, they're able to like come in and they get 35 minutes to collaborate together with someone they would not get to. So provide like those science and math, pulling those people together
Yeah.
within that time to focus. Okay, this is what we're doing in physical science, and this is where our kids are missing the mark. How can you help me, or what can I do to help the kids understand, the students understand what they need to be successful here? Um, but just again, trying to think outside the box to provide those opportunities for that collaboration is huge because we are a 4-day school week, except for the first Friday of every month. And so again, like we're short on time. We go from 7:45 to 2:45, 4 days a week. How are we going to get the time in for our teachers to
Yeah.
collaborate together?
I actually had an assistant superintendent from another district in Oklahoma on the show not too long ago, and he mentioned that they too were on a 4-day week, but looking to make a change with that in, I think, the coming school year. Is that something that Bridge Creek is considering as well?
I don't think so at this point in time. It really has worked out for us. Like at the high school level, for instance, like we have a lot of students that work, right? And so the 4-day school week allows our students to work on those Fridays. It allows them to have a full day of work. It allows our students to have a reset. You really you can tell the difference around here from a 5-day week to a 4-day week. The energy level is down on the Friday when they're here, but I think it also has created opportunities for our students to really understand, like, hey, time management. I got to get my time management in. I got to make sure I do X, Y, and Z by this time. But also, they have the opportunity to really spend time for school versus work. They're not getting pulled in those different directions. 'Cause our kids are so busy today. They're so busy. They have so much on their plates. So right now, the 4-day school week, I think we'll probably keep for a little bit, because it's really helped with discipline. It's helped with academic achievement with our kids. We've seen an increase in academic achievement and a drop in our discipline for it.
That's really good. Okay. And back to the win time. So, for our audience that may not know, win is what I need, where students are provided with either interventions or accelerations, depending on what they need. And your description of that did lead me to wondering about the 4-day week. I just admire that you've already made changes 3 times this year because I think too often, we get a program in place, we put something in place, and it's even if it's not working, we let it be for that at least a semester. So here we are, not even at the end of the first semester, and you um, have made adjustments 3 times. Will you share some of what you've learned? I think that would be really helpful for our audience.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is just when you approach it with your staff is just being honest. Like, listen, this is what our vision is. This is what we want. And just being honest of like, I'm not 100% sure how we're going to get that. And then just bringing a leadership team in and just saying, okay, what does this look like? What do you guys want when to look like? What do we need? This is what I need from it. What do you need from it? And how do we combine those together? And so what we ran into was we had students who were trying to go, obviously, like to band or art or to their electives that they enjoy, but they were missing that remediation time. Well, I don't want to punish any of our kids, even though it's not a punishment, but they feel like it is. If I say, okay, well, you can't go to band because of this, or in trying to, there was just too many moving parts, and so surveying your staff was huge. Surveying them, trying to figure out, okay, what are you seeing? Because they know the things that you can't see, right? You get the whole overview of it all, but they really see what is happening with history, what is happening with English, and so going to them and asking them, okay, what are the pros and cons? Where do we stand? How can we adjust this? What do our kids want? What do our kids need? And so we meet with the Stuco students, our student council students, and ask them as well, like because they have to have a voice for them to buy into it, for them to change um, their culture. That shared understanding of what success will look like for them and for us is really huge. And so we did that. We made some adjustments. Still wasn't working. Still had teachers that some of our teachers were allowing kids to go where they thought they needed to go. They weren't checking. And so what we did now was um, I split out all of our elective students. So all of our kids that go to art, that like if they're in advanced art, they get to go to advanced art extra 30 minutes every day. Band students, they get 30 minutes every day. They get extra time unless they are not meeting the mark on a certain subject area. And we base it off of our star scores, our benchmark, um, and or any local CFA we've done that week in class. There's some remediation that needs to be done. And so the teachers communicate that with the electives and let them know, the student I need in my class today. And we use Smart Pass, which is like a digital hall pass. Um, and so we use that and they put it in there. And then so all the teachers can see which students are supposed to be where at a certain time. And that really has helped. Um, and so students now are like, well, I don't want to get pulled from my extra 30 minutes of art to work on this reading assignment that I am not understanding. So what I've seen is we've been in this transition now of about a month and a half, and we're seeing where more students are less missing work and more first time the students are trying to be successful and more thorough on their assignments, and especially on those CFAs. That way they don't have to go
Yeah.
to and miss that time with their electives. So trying to get a little motivation there, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so just to clarify, the 3, changes or iterations, the first was trying something and then just getting input and feedback. Is that right?
Yes.
And then the second adjustment was figuring out how to, um, allow kids to still have their elective.
Yes.
And then the third?
Making sure that they have a voice, making sure that you're asking everybody, not just your core teachers, but your elective teachers, your students, have them have the voice, and the feedback because you had probably the best intentions with how you want that to run, but the ones that are it's actually impacting is really who needs to help design that. And don't be afraid to change it. If it doesn't work, that's what one teacher asked, like, why are we changing it? Because it's not working and we don't have time to waste. There's not enough time in the day. So we got to change it. So
That's admirable. Okay.
it was a little scary.
Yeah, of course. But, if we just keep doing the same thing and we're not getting results, then we're just losing time, and time is so precious.
Yes, absolutely.
The other piece that you mentioned around bringing a leadership team together, I am wondering about that. Do you have a site leadership team that you uh, bring together for various decisions?
Yeah. So we actually have two. We have like a traditional leadership team at our site. And so it is a lot of our teachers that have wanted an impact in our school. I don't necessarily pick the teachers that have been there the longest. Um, for seniority purposes, I really try to find the ones that are really engaged and want to create that culture and guide um, the great things that are happening here. And so we have that one that helps decide more of kind of if we're going to have a fun day with our students, if we're going to what incentives are we going to give kids to do things? What is our staff gathering going to be this month outside of school? So we try to work those. That's kind of like their area. And then I have like our guiding coalition, which is just for our PLCs and our core classes. And so they work on one time that was really guided by them. That has what CFAs look like. What do we want our CFAs to look like? How are we going to use the data? What 3 points are data are we pulling each time when we meet? And kind of like setting that expectation across the board for what our PLCs will look like. And so I think there's two people that serve on both, but I really try to make them different on each end because I want to pull like where their expertise is, like where are they comfortable with, what can they really provide? Because everybody can provide something. Like, all of the teachers have um, a different impact on our school, and just trying to find the best way to utilize each of them is so important.
Of course, yeah. Tell us about the professional learning community. You've mentioned that a couple of times. The professional learning community of your staff as a whole, and also of your teachers.
So the we'll talk about each. So they have common plans. So
Okay.
each core subject has a common plan, and in that time, like we have an agenda. We run it very much like a traditional like PLC learning community. However, we're all singletons, so there is one teacher per subject, which makes it rather difficult, right?
Yeah.
Like we can't compare CFA data because we don't have it. And so we had to think outside the box here. We've had to figure out, okay, what do we have in common? And so they've had to identify areas, you know, with history, like what areas from Oklahoma history to modern world history, what are things that we have all consistently have in common, and what are areas that our students are struggling in. And so when they do their CFAs, they try to consistently add in commonalities between them. That way we can look at that data and work together. Um, our they take a state test every year for U.S. history. The juniors do. Um, and so that whole PLC is really designed working toward helping our junior history teacher um, increase her scores and have our students be successful there. Um, but like math, right? Math is more consistent. You can see things that are it's buildable. What are the areas that we're building on? So they're noticing that some of our students are not memorizing like multiplication facts. Okay, how do we change that? How do we fix that? And so they sit down and they say, okay, on win time from this week to this week, we're going to work on all your kids that are struggling in this area from your STAR test. I'm going to pull those kids into my classroom and they'll be assigned to come to me for 2 weeks and we'll work on that. And then we'll retest them. So English and math really do work together as a whole group because they are singletons, but they're very common. There's common themes, common things they can work together on. Where science and history are a little bit different. Um, they're not able to do that. But as a whole staff, um, providing the our win time, that extra time whenever they don't have students in their classroom, it's set aside 1 day a week. Each core area has a time set aside for data analysis. And
Okay.
so that's when we're looking at pre-ACT scores, um, or they're looking at their benchmarks or STAR scores, and we're analyzing that data to figure out what areas we need to improve on. Or we're able to meet with, again, like physical science and math. I keep thinking about that because we just went over that last week, providing them time to get together. And so, really just trying to let everyone own ownership of our students and our test scores and whether that, in art has to take responsibility for the ACT test as well. So what are they doing? And teaching them, like her AP students, they have to write. Okay, well, making them write to the standards that our junior English teacher is having them write to as well. So just having that commonality, that common language across really does help um, the whole staff as well as their individual core PLCs.
That's huge. Yes. Earlier, you shared something about discourse in the classroom, and it reminded me of a high school that I worked with, or that I actually am still working with in California, who they noticed that post-pandemic, their kids were really struggling to socialize as much, like, about the content, in the classrooms, they were really quiet, and so, they had been focusing on getting kids they started with just like, let's get kids to talk about their learning again. And then they added in the academic language piece. Then they added in the, rigor or complexity piece. And it's kind of like how it's evolved. And they absolutely are now seeing more kids talk in the classroom. Have you noticed a challenge with that in your classrooms?
Yeah. So one of the big things that our whole district took the initiative on was like the model schools. And so we have really taken in to the 3 R's, rigor, relevance, and relationships with our
Okay.
students. And so making sure that our students understand discourse, someone having different opinions. And that is huge. I like to call it cemetery seating. I was a very traditional teacher as well. But when you see cemetery seating in a classroom, I'm like, guys, what are we doing? Do you want to sit here and listen to me talk all day long? No, you don't. So get them up. And so our teachers, a lot of our new teachers that come in, they are shocked whenever classrooms are a little bit louder, right? But it's organized chaos. There's things happening, there's conversations happening, there's debates happening. The very simple, like, turn and talk, whatever that looks like for each classroom. So when we get new teachers into our district, we are very strategic in how we bring them in, whether it's a new teacher orientation with us, and we teach them those skills that we want to see. We're teaching them, the turn and talks, or this is the stance that you're going to take on this, and you have to determine why this works or doesn't work. Um, our history teachers do a great job of providing a problem, right? So the assassination of JFK, and then just leaving it at that. Well, then the students are in groups, and they have to determine what happened. They got to figure it out. And so Oklahoma passed a law not too long this last year. that we are no cell phone. We're no cell phones at all. And so I'd say the last 3 years though, our school district policy has been no cell phones as well. So the law didn't
Okay.
really change anything for us. We've been doing it anyways. Um, Huge game changer, right? The big thing, so before we would allow students to have their cell phones at lunch, right? Now the lunchroom is so loud again. And I love it because I'm like, let them talk. Let them talk to each other. Let them get loud because they are learning those social skills that we all grew up with. We all had them. And so we have to create a culture that our kids can do that in. They can express themselves and it's safe. But yet we are also teaching kids they're not going to agree with you. People don't agree with everybody all the time, and
Yeah.
that's okay. And so really just again providing those opportunities for them to gain knowledge, gain life skills, um, and teaching them like it some cultures you want to look people in the eye and shake their hand, right? But there are some cultures that are not that you don't do that with.
Yeah.
So again, showing them the best way to do that, like how what cultures look like or how they're different, how they're the same, and then disagreements as well. Um, that's been really big for us. But I'm telling you, the cell phone thing has been a game changer. Our kids are so loud and talking and laughing, and it's just great. I love it.
It makes so much sense, yet I don't know that I would have predicted that to be a result of the no cell phone policies that we're seeing.
No, not at all. I wouldn't have
We
either.
started
And
talking to each other more at lunch.
yes, yeah. And I was talking to a friend that's a principal, and she was telling me that their increase since there are no cell phones, they have increased their library book checkout by, I mean,
Wow.
she said it's went up by like 1,000 books.
Oh, that's an
And they were
interesting,
for
data point to look at. Yeah.
yes. So I pulled ours and I was like, "Do we have any?" Um, and our librarian's like, "I mean, we haven't had cell phones for 3 years, Harley." I was like, "Okay, okay, you're right. We probably don't have like that immediate data. I get it." But it is really cool to see the changing kids. Um, and just the ability for them to learn to communicate and talk and work through things. Um, I think those skills that like we have taken for granted because we have
Yeah.
done those, but these generations they haven't. Like there are cell phones, and I'm going to text instead of write a note. My English one teacher told me the other day that she had to take notes up from students, and I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, they're passing notes again." I'm like, "What? What is happening?" Um, which I'm glad, like, they're writing, their handwriting skills because another thing we've noticed, handwriting is horrible, right? And so, um, the more they practice, the better it's gonna get. I was like, "Let them write those notes, girl. Whatever we gotta do, well, it'll help in the long run."
Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. Thanks for sharing, Harley Webb. It has been an honor and a pleasure to have you on our show today. Where can people go if they want to learn more about your school or district?
So the best way to know what's going on with our school is that we have our Facebook page, and it's just Bridge Creek HS on Facebook. That's where we keep all of our updates. But my email address is hweb at bridgecreek.k12.ok.us. That's the easiest way.
Yeah, it sounds like a really cool community and place. So if you're looking for a new place to call home as a teacher or as a family, with kids trying to find a great public schools to put your kiddos in, be sure to check it out. Harley,
Absolutely.
thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, that's us signing off. Until next time, bye. Thank you for listening to the Unlock 360 podcast. Follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube and visit leadteachlearn360.com to learn more about us because every school deserves systems that work and leaders who can make them thrive.